DeepSeek strikes again. You're watching Techstrong Gang. Hey, good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. Jake Shimel here from the Blues Brothers, bringing you Techstrong Gang. No, I'm dressed today as, well, I could be a Blues Brother. I could be a man in black. I could be Mr. Smith from The Matrix. But I am actually dressed in my Blues Brother uniform. We're filming a promo after the gang today for our upcoming Cloud Native Now, One for the Road event coming up later this month. And it has a bit of a Blues Brothers theme. So stay tuned for that. Me and Mitch Ashley are teaming up again as Jake and Elwood, One for the Road. So I'm in costume. Nevertheless, the show must go on, and we will be doing our regular Techstrong Gang. We got a great gang to talk about. We're going to talk about DeepSeek and some other AI stuff and a little AI security, AI this, AI that, everywhere in AI. Let me introduce you to our gang for today. We've got Teri Robinson and Garima Bajpai, along with Mike Vizard, all three of them in New York. There you go. We've got last week it was Colorado. This week we're all about the Big Apple, except, of course, for our man in Silicon Valley, John Swartz. Gang members, welcome. Mike, as I mentioned in the opening, DeepSeek is striking again. Will it strike fear into the heart of the American AI industry, maybe all the way up to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue? I don't know. Maybe we could declare DeepSeek illegal and buy their algorithm. What's going on?
So it seems like DeepSeek maybe is taking a certain amount of glee and embarrassing some of the American AI companies. It almost feels like the Ryder Cup, but China versus the US. But the issue is that they seem to keep coming up with more efficient ways to train AI models that cost a lot less. Now they have this new thing called sparse attention technology, which I guess is useful in some use cases, not every use case. But the basic idea here is that the cost of AI is coming down, John. And it looks to me like, well, other people will copy this, no doubt, and we will just see a substantial reduction in the cost of AI, and we may not use DeepSeek, but it definitely looks like progress.
Yeah, it does. I mean, as you said, Mike, DeepSeek researchers Monday released something. It's basically the official name of this model is V3.2/EXP, which is basically this experimental model and based in large part on something called sparse attention, which is an architecture that employs two key components to manage computational resources more efficiently and bring down costs. So there basically is this dual approach that includes something called Lightning Indexer module that identifies and prioritizes relevant excerpts from the model's context window. And then there's a secondary fine-grained token selection system that extracts specific tokens from those excerpts to load into the model's constrained attention window. In other words, it is an advancement, maybe a modest sequel to R1, which pretty much roiled the industry. But nonetheless, it is an advancement and something that the industry is going to react to. It hasn't reacted to it initially, but it's something that bears watching. And again, this is not on the scale of what happened earlier this year with R1, but nonetheless, it's an advancement. And consequently or conversely, we're looking at chatbots from OpenAI and Anthropic that are doing a lot of things that are interesting, but this is something that's core in terms of technology, in terms of cost reduction.
It seems to me, at least, that maybe we're spending too much time trying to figure out how to consume as many GPUs as possible, because somehow or other we've got our priorities wrong, and we're not really thinking about this as, how do we do this more efficiently in a way that becomes more affordable for more people. But Alan, what do you think?
I think the Manhattan Project wasn't done on a shoestring budget either, right? I think for whatever reason, our pursuit of AI, whether it's superintelligence or AGI or AI nirvana, is, is it at all costs we're going to get there. It's at an all cost type of breakneck pace where we don't really care about the efficiencies. We'll efficiency it later. And, it is what it is. Now, the Chinese are being more pragmatic. And I don't want to say the Chinese because I hate to set this up as a Sino-US. For those who don't know, Sino is another word for the Chinese. For a Sino-US type of confrontation. It's just a question of differing research and differing philosophies in terms of how we do this. And they're showing an alternative which is viable, evidently. Will it get you there faster, bigger? Maybe, maybe not. But when the time comes where we want to say we don't need a sledgehammer to swat a fly, maybe they've got a good fly swatter. And so, I think the key to growing older for me was learning it's all about the right tool for the job.
Yeah. There is one important factor. I agree with Ellen what you said, and this is Dunning-Kruger's effect, right? So we have a substantial amount of excitement and interest in this emerging technology. There's a lot of pockets of initiatives growing up without any financial accountability. And then, what happens, surprise that, a lot of mass cancellation of these projects would happen in turn, right? But I wanted to reflect on the announcement, what happened this week. And John, you wrote an article, excellent article on this as well. The breakthrough here is that this whole technology is shifting the focus from CapEx to OpEx. The AI cost structure is shifting from high upfront training cost to recurring inference spending, right? And that's what DeepSeek is trying to catch the wave. Right. So this breakthrough is all about how to reduce the AI model deployment challenge and the cost of deploying that model. Right. And there is what we have seen is that there is an exponential rise in computational and memory requirements as context window lengthens and increases. Right. So this is a different kind of innovation, and they are trying to catch the wave that from CapEx centricity to OpEx centricity, when all these models will go into production grade technology. What impacts most is how the OpEx is building up, right? So this is one of the core elements of this whole breakthrough, and I feel that there will be a substantial recalibration of innovation incentives to a certain extent to cater to this kind of a challenge which we are seeing from DeepSeek.
Garima, do you think we're going to see a separation of engineering tasks here? And there's a world of difference between training AI models and then, to your point, deploying them. And is that going to become more of something that the DevOps teams focus on, and then they focus on the efficiency of the inference engines, and that's where we're going to kind of drive down the cost and the cost out?
Perhaps, John?
Oh, I was going to say there's this interesting contrast between what's going on with DeepSeek and then what happens in the United States, where we just see hundreds of billions of dollars being committed to building these large, grotesque data centers that are going to chew up energy and ruin cities and towns, environments where they're based. And it's just a completely different philosophy. But then again, it almost kind of aligns with kind of the American bigger, better, beautiful
You're thinking
approach,
like one
right?
of those cars in Texas with the big Texas Longhorns at the front. You know what I mean? Hey, that's
Bells and
America right
whistles,
there.
loud.
It's that warrior ethos.
Loud, showy, boisterous, kind of like our Defense Department these days. But
Yes, exactly.
It's also aligning to the fact that when technology becomes more accessible, which DeepSeek is trying to do with this whole announcement and shifting the roadmap towards accessibility and not centralization, I think you will see more and more marketplace players, right, using this kind of technology. So that's another shift in how this adoption would happen, and the scale and the opportunity is growing as we speak.
I analogize it to U.S. fighter jet technology compared to the Soviet Union / Russian fighter jet technology. It turns out the Russians never were able, dollar for dollar, to compete with what we were spending on R&D for, fourth generation, third generation, fifth generation fighter jets. However, they put money into building bigger engines that were loud. They didn't really go for the stealth at first or that kind of thing. And they made fighter jets that were passable, adequate, decent, at a fraction of the cost of U.S. fighter jets. They didn't have all the bells and whistles, right? But they did the job, effective. And it's a very similar thing here. This is an effective tool for effective use case, for the right use cases. There may be times when you want, the big ass Cadillac with the big horns on the front. And there are other times where you can get away driving a Camry.
I think there's more times when you just need the Camry than you need the big ass Cadillac. And I wonder if other countries around the world are going to take notice and start using more of the DeepSeek type approaches and technologies to do things that are meaningful to their economy versus investing in super intelligence projects that are kind of like moonshot programs.
But what makes you think that the current administration gives a heck what the rest of the world thinks or does?
No, I'm just saying.
Well, clearly they don't, but it doesn't mean that the rest of the world won't get ahead of us and all of this.
When you build walls, you build yourself in instead of keeping others out.
There's no guarantee. Like we talk about these super intelligence projects. I mean, how's it going at Meta? I mean, some of the folks that they've recruited have already left. I mean, is this going to be the same path that you took with Metaverse? I mean, there's no guarantee with that either.
Right. If you think about the market projections, you can divide this market into 3 segments, right? One is the front runner, technology leading markets like US. So primarily, there is a certain set of cost centricity in the innovation. Then you have mixed markets, which are more volatile in nature, right? So a lot of innovation which is coming from India, for example, and some parts of the world. I think these are volatile markets, and they are very cost centric as well. So it is important to understand, how we should build a roadmap which caters to different kind of markets. And then there are other conservative markets which have not even leaned on one specific technology, right?
Did you hear about the new super intelligence AI model that's coming out? Its code name is Ponzi. What do you think?
Like the scheme.
I'm all for that scheme. Yeah, I'm all
all about the scheme. It's all about the base.
I think the group that's going to benefit for this, though, are kind of the bad guys, right? I mean, more rapid deployment, of insecure models. I mean, they're the ones probably that are going to make out like bandits.
You always think through the cyber security prism, though, Teri.
Yeah. I know. Well, yeah, I know. It's an unfortunate myopic vision on my part, but seriously, that's what always worries me about these things. You do it cheaper and faster, those guys are gonna, be there first and probably do it better.
Now, to be fair, people in the U.S. who matter on this subject are paying attention to this, and they might not be grabbing the headlines, but it's not like they're sitting on their hands. It's just that all the noise is over on these massive super intelligence projects. But I think, and I hope, that there are smarter, cooler heads at work in the US who are looking at all this stuff and saying, yeah, we can figure out how to do this to drive smaller language models that are cheaper to deploy. We'll get the DevOps teams involved and we will be competitive. It just won't be, driving the stock price.
You mean smarter, cooler heads in private industry, though, right?
No. I heard there's some guy out in Montana named Zephyrin Pike who's working on this as well as a warp engine. Could be.
That'll be the next super investment right after quantum.
Anyway, all right, let's take a break. We're going to come back and talk about some AI coding bottlenecks that are showing themselves. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
Hey folks, we're back and we're talking about, well, AI and DevOps, and it's been a recurring theme on this show for a while, but now there's a new report out from Harness that kind of goes into the details of what we're actually seeing and have long suspected, where there's more code than ever. It's going through the pipelines, but the pipelines themselves are not any more efficient. And so it just seems to be all creating a giant bottleneck. Or as the folks from Harness describe it, it's like a bunch of 6-lane highways that are all terminate at a 2-lane bridge, and bad things are happening. And the code isn't all that good in the first place. So it keeps getting sent back to the proverbial kitchen to be redone. And we're on some sort of infinite loop here. Garima, what's your take on what's going on here?
Interesting and surprise, right? I mean, we were not accounting for that challenge, right? So if you see the report, this report surveyed 500 software engineering leaders, and almost all of them suggested that artificial intelligence tools can reduce burnout, but half of the respondents also believe that AI tools are creating more deployment errors in their code. And when we look at deployment errors, we look at not only deployment errors but also day 2 code, right? So we have been talking about this in this show from the beginning, that we have seen experimental projects, we have seen a lot of efficiency from a developer productivity point of view. Companies like Salesforce and likes of them have been advocating that how much efficiency they have brought in the developer productivity space. But when it comes to production grade software and what challenges it bring to the day 2 kind of operations, I think we have seen some examples of it, and Harness's report actually solidifies our understanding. So I'll quote a few things which we have seen in the past, like the catastrophic failure where an agent deleted all the database and then lies about it, right? This is like known to everyone. And why did that happen? So again, the production grade software ecosystem is kind of not ready to be kind of trusted so far, and it is also creating a lot of operational challenges for software practitioners. Another example is this Canadian Airlines company who was sued for some kind of a chatbot travel discount advice, and court held accountable the airline company itself. There was another case where AI startup was building up a no-code software, but in turn what they did was they hired low-cost software developers and humans in the back end to actually get rid of some of the gaps and the strategic kind of risks which they foresee when they used the AI tools. So this report actually solidifies all what we had said in the past, like production incidents, security risks, cloud cost overrun, tool sprawl, automation gaps. All this it is kind of bound to happen, and people are seeing that as they are introducing more and more AI generated code. Now, one thing which I also wanted to point out before I give this forum back to you, Mike, is that there was another report which came out from DORA, the DORA AI native report. And it is important to actually differentiate these two reports and how they are different in terms of not only findings, but sample size and core focus. Because when you see the DORA AI native report, it actually solidifies the understanding that AI capability is an amplifier, right? AI is an organizational amplifier. But what they did was the sample size of the survey respondent was like more than 500 tech professionals. And I would say DORA takes it from a system thinking perspective, a strategic kind of outlook, whereas Harness, this report is very here and now. right? What is happening from a practical challenge? What financial impact it is creating? And I think people should pay attention to both these reports. What they essentially say is that AI can be a strategic amplifier in the longer run, but you need to ensure that you have your key initiatives, you have governance, you have a lot of capability, how risk management is done in the context of AI before you actually blow this out of proportion and take the next steps, and do overlook the financial impact in the near and midterm.
So, we spoke about the Dora report, I think, earlier this week on one of the gangs. Yes, according to Dora, 90% of the developers are using AI. However, 1/3 of them don't trust AI. And especially in larger organizations, AI is introducing instability into your code, your CI/CD process. And so there's definitely, to say there's room for improvement is an understatement. And so I think in that regard, it does dovetail a little bit with what the Harness survey shows. But here's the bottom line. We could stamp our feet and hold our breath as much as we want. The AI train has left the station. It's the AI Express. And whether you want to go slow and efficiently in the DeepSeek model or ride that big-ass Cadillac that we spoke about, one way or the other, you're getting on the highway. And, as a security person, and Teri, you'll appreciate this, we could try to be the people who say no, but that don't work. You can't be the people who say no. You got to figure out what can I do to make it better? I see there are these problems. I see there are these bottlenecks. I see there's these instabilities. I see there's issues. How can we work to overcome that? And that's where it's at.
I think security is getting better about that. They were the just say no people for the longest.
No, now they're with the yes we can.
Yes, we can, and here's how, right?
So Garima, help me here, because here's the part that always, kind of makes me go, huh? So we've been doing this DevOps thing for a while. We understand code. It moves through the pipeline, and along comes AI, and suddenly we just ignore everything we knew and learned before, and we just start throwing massive amounts of code through the front end of the pipeline, and we expect something magical to happen on the back end of the pipeline. What's going on? I mean, can't we have a more holistic thought process here?
I will give you like 2 examples, and then maybe it is becoming more clear that, first of all, what has happened with this AI revolution is it is more centric towards individual productivity at this point in time. And this is also reflected in Dora and other reports that, it's time for us to think about how we can create teams with AI in the loop or AI in the mix. So there is a definite challenge that we need to look at how AI can introduce team productivity. So when we talk about DevOps or other capabilities, it's not an individual game. It is not about how many lines of code you write or how many times you deliver a day, what kind of reliability the software has, right? So this is one aspect of it. So I think the game is changing a little bit here. The second aspect is the J curve of productivity. And this is not this first time we are seeing inventions like electricity, fire, and all that, right? When electricity came in, it did not only needed replacing steam engines, it also needed factory redesign, right? So it's the same kind of thought process we need to implement when we are looking at AI. AI needs data governance. AI needs AI risk, management. It also needs upskilling, reskilling. 70% of your time and energy and investment should go into people and process. 20% should go in technology and 10% in algorithms and those kind of things. And this is like a proven 10-20-70 rule, right? So I think leaders and mid-level leaders, senior management need to come together to ensure that it's understood in a holistic way that how AI can produce more code with the trust and with ethics and with responsible AI at its core.
Fair enough. All right. Mike?
Is there going to be a meeting somewhere where we can all go and have that conversation? Because it seems like it's happening in isolation and at different paces everywhere. And I just feel like it's intuitively obvious what's going on here, and yet we seem incapable of acting on it.
I'll tell you, this is like Dunning-Kruger's effect, as I mentioned earlier. You know, you will reach to a peak of stupidity, and then mass cancellation of projects happen because there is no relationship between the product objectives and the financial OKRs. So, what is the return of investment?
We're well aware, familiar with that effect right now. So.
Crazy. All right. Let's take a break on here and finish up our B block, and we'll roll right into C block here. Again, talking about AI and AI insecurity. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
Hey folks, we're back, and I guess we're picking up on that stupidity theme a little bit, but we're going to have a little chat about cybersecurity and what's happening in the age of AI. There's no less than 3 articles on Security Boulevard talking about these issues. One is by Alan, suggesting that we are fighting tomorrow's battles with yesterday's technologies. The other one is with Teri, who seems to believe at least that folks are starting to revisit their security strategies and start to understand the scope of the threat. And just to put a fine point on that, Microsoft put out a report showing how they used AI tools to discover AI attacks. So this stuff is really happening now. Teri, are we going to be capable of doing something a little more proactive about this, or are we just waiting for some cataclysmic event to occur where somebody gets fired and there's going to be some massive cybersecurity issue, and then everybody wakes up and says, oh, gee, we should do something?
I always feel like I come out in the middle of these things. I don't know how capable we are. I mean, we're capable. I don't know, or we're going to get capable. I don't know if we're going to really do it before a cataclysmic event comes along. I mean, you're right. Like AI runs, it's the thread running through all 3 of these stories. Alan, I thought your piece was exceptional and especially timely, given what happened with Pete Hegseth's little speech yesterday and our Department of Defense war, whatever we're calling it now. It occurred to me, and I hadn't read your piece at that point, that what he was talking about was sort of old approach to new threats.
He definitely wants to fight the Vietnam War again.
Right. And like hand-to-hand combats with our chubby generals or whatever we're going to have, going on out there. And it's sort of some friends and I got into a discussion about, well, war is more on the digital front these days, too. And you need smart people and smart solutions rather than beefcake, I think, at this point. But your reference to the Maginot Line was great, because everybody, if you're a student of history, you know how that went. It was superior technology for its time, right? Or it was a good idea. But by the time World War II rolled around,
done. It was yesterday's technology, and not to belabor that one, Teri, but I'm sitting watching that yesterday, not watching. I read about it after. I didn't watch it live, but. And I'm thinking to myself, someone should tell the Israelis, because they've had women in combat roles there, and and you look at what's going on in the war zones today in the world, Ukraine, the Middle East, some of the other places. It's all about the drones. It's all about the digital. It's all, it's redefining. Maybe we really don't need those billion-dollar fighter jets when we can have 3,000 drones for the same price.
Maybe we just need a few.
Right. or you maybe just need a few. But it's the same thing in security, right? We are, we're fighting. Here's the deal for my security friends out there. If you're not using AI to fight AI, get the hell off the battlefield, right? That's what it comes down to. Don't tell me, about your threat detections and your big honking boxes and all that other crap. The bad guys are leveraging AI. They're getting better phishing. They're getting better security vulnerability, fuzzing and testing and so forth. And if you're not using the tools at hand to defend against today's and tomorrow's attacks, you're doing yourself and your organization and this profession a disservice.
That's right. And I mean, we all understand the bad guys don't have the same rules for engagement and everything else that may be in private industry or in our government. Although now it looks like our rules of engagement for battle are going to also change. I guess that means we're going to be more proactive and I don't know, are we going to start attacking people?
So I actually did a visualization with the support of AI, like how we visualize these vulnerabilities to be kind of growing till 2040. And, when I did that, it gave me like worst case and best case scenarios. So in the middle ground, we are seeing 17% surge in CVs every year, which means it takes us to 100K 100K of disclosures per year by 2030. And if you go to 2040, it will be 500,000. So to the point which Ellen was making, that, I think we need to think through more smartly on all these things, because there is no way possible that we can manage this with human effort.
So, in defense of our cybersecurity friends, I think part of the issue is budget. And AI is not free. And they're sitting there going, do I need to get a new platform, or do I need to wait for my existing platforms to be upgraded to have AI capabilities? And how much is that going to cost? And nobody seems to really know. And I think it's very hard to go down to the CEO and say, we're going to need to invest, 20-30% more in cybersecurity, and they're going to be like, I already just boosted your budget by 20 and 30% every year for the last 5 years. So there's pushback in the system.
I think you got faulty information. Whoever's telling you that's not telling you the truth, right? I recent survey I saw, I remember from being out at Swamp Up, and it was a survey, I think it was a Gartner survey.
It was Gartner, you're right.
Right? 40% of CIOs are increasing their budget. Why? Because their board is telling them, you got to get on this AI thing, you need more money. So when the board tells you to ask for more money, you ask for more money.
But what percentage of that is going to cyber?
Well, that's a good question. But if the CISO says those two magic letters, AI, the checkbooks are opening for them. Wait a
minute. 100 minus 40 is 60. So 60% are not doing squat.
Well, no, they're not asking for more money. They're not asking for more money.
They're flat, right? or less.
But the message is clear. The board at the board level, they're understanding that AI on all fronts is imperative.
Just going back to the last segment, though, and including this one, this must be like, at the same time, exhilarating possibilities, terrifying consequences. Given what's at stake and trying to pivot to what AIs potentially can do and what can go wrong. As I think Mike or someone else mentioned this idea of some kind of cataclysmic events is going to maybe create more of even more of a sense of urgency. But I mean, we're at the early stages. There are growing pains. And we're just going to continue to see these types of surveys and results and these types of issues.
But historically, look, it took Pearl Harbor for us to enter World War II.
Yes.
It took Sputnik being launched to get our ass in gear about a space program. It took 9/11, unfortunately, to get serious about terrorism. We're going to
Okay,
need
and
an
that's
AI digital Pearl Harbor. I'm sorry, Teri, go ahead.
well. I'm sorry, and I don't mean to interrupt there, but that's actually, and you bring up 9/11. That's what I talked to John Waters over at iCounter about a couple of weeks ago, because he has this feeling too that the approach has been. I mean, defenders are running CDEs against what already exists, right? Or whatever, and they're trying to defend against their models. Are trying to defend their companies against what exists and whatnot. He thinks we should adopt like this sort of post 9/11 mentality. That's what we should be, thinking about in terms of like, this big event that sort of blew everything wide open, right? And made us do things differently when it came to terrorism security. That's what we should be doing with cybersecurity at this point. And the resources that you do have with these budgets that may be up, maybe down some places, maybe flat, should be put on the things that are, really needed. And if that's AI, if AI is going to be your thing, and I think whoever said that earlier, if you're not doing AI right now, Mike, was that you that is, using AI for your defense, then you're not, or was it John? So sorry, but anyway, I mean, you should, or Alan. I'm sorry, you're pointing that way, and I'm
Well, everybody's screen is different here, so yeah.
That's right. So yeah, so Alan's over there. He's in the Mike Brady position, I believe.
Yes, very good, very good.
One more thing which we should also reflect in the security kind of landscape changing is I was reading a report and there was some kind of GPT, fraud GPT or something, which is like up for subscription for $200. So what it speaks to you, there are localized, they can be an, micro to localized kind of fraud happening in, just next door to you because it's so cheap, and it's subscription based. So I think there is time for us to think about all this like in a very serious way.
Agreed. Look, I'm convinced it's going to take a Pearl Harbor kind of thing for us to really get real about it.
Is it a sad statement of the human condition as I look at all three of these topics that we just covered, that we are incapable of learning? Is that where we are? Is this truly the state?
We only learn when we get burned, I think, sometimes.
Yeah,
it's
sense of urgency.
Right.
Until it applies to you,
when
you really don't care.
When your healthcare goes away, right, or your Medicaid or whatever, that's when you learn how hot the fire is, and that you're the one that's getting singed. So I think the same is probably true when it comes to, security, cybersecurity issues. It's but I mean, maybe that is a little bit.
I mean, this is not a new, AI is the new catalyst, but it's not a new. This is not a new strategy in security.
But it also reflects the challenge, like, what we can do is what we are seeing is that maybe the software profession is getting more commoditized. But cyberspace and cyber professional and the reskilling in that area is still required. And that will be the niche for next 5 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I'm glad to see people going toward reskilling. It used to be a hard sell, reskilling and upskilling and all of that. They just fired people and got new people with different skill sets, and you lose your brain trust and everything else that way, And
but Teri, I got to tell you, and I'd love to discuss this on another gang as a standalone topic. I think we are, so I'm at the tail end of the boomer, beginning of Gen X generations. I was always taught, and I've been a CEO and co-founder of more than several companies. I was always taught that people are your most valuable asset. People are your most valuable asset. Invest in your people, hire good people, train them up. They're your most valuable asset. I think there are a lot of Gen Y, Z, millennial, whatever it is, people coming up that say people are disposable. They're going to be replaced by AI anyway. And the idea of investing in upskilling them is crazy. By the time they get upskilled, they're obsolete anyway. And I think that is a big discussion around, is AI taking my job? Am I firing people, replacing them with AI? Because you shouldn't fire people to replace them with AI. You should have those people do more valuable tasks and let the AI do it. But I think philosophically, that is an issue. If I have AI do my cybersecurity, I don't need as many of these expensive cybersecurity pros that are hard to come by. And so if I could get AI to do it, we're all better off. I'm not saying that's right. I'm saying that's an attitude that's out there.
That's what they're thinking. Yeah.
Yep. Anyway, on that uplifting note,
Well, I would just say that there's an old piece of wisdom out there that says you can't fix stupid.
yes, our friend Ira Winker actually has a book that says you can. But all right, hey, enjoy your Thursday, folks. We'll be back tomorrow to wrap up the week here on the gang. I don't think I'll be on tomorrow's show. Maybe I'll be on the road with Elwood, going to Illinois or something.
How about a little harmonica to see us out?
Yeah. It's about as best I could do. Have a great day. I'm Alan Shimel. We're out.